Hi guys, my name is Sarang Gupte and today I'm going to discuss three functions which I have created in R for statistical analysis. This was an assignment provided to us by our professor Gaurav Nath in our programming course. So let's get to it. First we are going to uh, set the directory and get the data which we are going to use in our functions. So I have already done that, so I'm not going to do it again. This is the t-test function which I'm going to create. The function takes arguments data, var, and target. Data is where we will provide the data which we are going to use in the t-test. var argument will take names of the columns you want to perform t-test on, and if not given, it will just take all the columns in the dataset. Target is the argument which will take the column against which we are going to perform our t-test. So we are going to create two empty vectors which we are going to use later in the code. This if statement is to check if the target column is categorical or not, and if categorical, does it have only two unique categories? If not, then this message will be prompted to the user. Now this part of the code will perform the t-test on both the columns. It will take a column from the var argument, check if the column is numerical or not, then perform the t-test using this t.test function. It will take the p-value from the t-test and I, that is the name of the column which is currently in the loop, and store it in the variables accordingly, p-values and variables. Now in this part of the code, the data frame is created using variables and p-values as the columns. Variables will contain the names of the columns on which the t-test has been performed, and p-values will contain the p-values of the column accordingly. And then function will return a data frame. Now let's test our function. So as you can see, I am using empty cars dataset here and giving variables cylinder, displacement, and horsepower. And the target variable is AM. Now from these three columns, cylinder column is not a numerical variable, so the code has removed it, haven't considered the cylinder column, and performed t-test on these two columns, displacement and horsepower. Let's take another example. Here I am using Framingham dataset and not giving column names in var argument, and the target is 10 years CHD. So as you can see, the function took all the columns except the ones which are not numerical, performed the t-test on each of one of them, and returned me the value. Now let's come to our second function, which is the chi-square test function. I'm going to create a function named chi-test, and the build of this function is pretty much similar to the t-test one which we just saw. The only difference will be that in this function, both variable argument and target argument will take input as categorical variables, as we want to perform the test only on categorical variables. So it's pretty much same like we did before. We created two empty vectors. Here we are checking if the target variable is categorical or not, just that we don't need that condition here that level should be 2 only, and if not, we will prompt this message to the user. Now come to the for loop. Here the column names will come. Each name will be checked if that column is categorical or not, and in this function we don't want to take the column as the same as the target, so we will use this condition to filter that out. After the column has passed these two conditions, we will perform the chi-square test on it and extract the p-values and store it in the p-values vector and the name of the columns in the variables vector. And then this function will return us a data frame. So let's just test our function. Here I'm using the empty cars dataset and will give the column names as cylinder, AM, and displacement. and here the target column is gear. So as you can see, the chi-square test was performed on cylinder column and AM column, and the displacement column was ignored as it was a numerical variable, and it has given us the p-values for each column against the gear column. Now let's come to our third function. This function is created for rearranging the columns of the data frame which we are going to input in this argument based on the data types. So if we give a data into this function, it will rearrange it in a certain format. That is, first it will keep the numerical variables, then integer variables, then character variables or factor variables. You can even change the order according to your choice. So first I've created 4 empty vector variables which we are going to use it in the code further. Here the names of the columns will be input in this for loop. For each column, it will check if the column is numerical, integer, factor or character, and accordingly it will send each column names to these variables. After the column names have been sent to the empty variables which we created before, this is the order in which we are going to arrange the columns, and the order will be stored in this variable. We are just going to change the column order of the column in the original data frame and return the new frame. So let's just run this first and then test our function. As you can see, I have given a cars dataset which we imported before, and this is the output. So as you can see, it has rearranged my columns according to the order which I gave here. Numerical columns are first, then integer columns, and then the character columns. So this is it for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching.